Welcome, everyone, to a special episode of Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. My name is Erik Roth, shamanic astrologer, and 2023 is coming up. At the time of this recording, it is December 15th, 2022, so we still have a few more weeks before the oncoming of the new year. And there's definitely a lot to cover for 2023. There's definitely a big change on the horizon, if you will, the way the planetary alignments are evolving and shifting. And so we're going to be covering that in this episode. And there are other things we're going to share about, of course, the eclipses and more for 2023. And just for you aware, I'm going to continue working with doing videos for 2023 and beyond. There's going to be a Patreon launch, which will be coming soon. So look out for that in the coming weeks. Probably right at the start of the new year is what I'm foreseeing for that launch. I already have the basics up on my Patreon site, but there's going to be much more added to that. I want to do a final review of all of that. And yeah, please like and subscribe this when if this is something you like watching and want to continue seeing these astrological updates. Something I'm going to continue to do, and I really enjoy this. So without further ado, I will go ahead and share what is happening with 2023 here. So we're going to look ahead to this year of 2023, and we're going to be looking at all the major changes. I won't be covering all the little minor and short-term planetary aspects. Those would be for other videos perhaps, and some of these topics that I'm going to cover in this video, I'm going to be looking at like separate videos just for them in 2023. With, like, for example, Jupiter in Taurus or Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn in Pisces. Those will get separate videos along with the eclipse seasons, which are always fun to do and connect into on a personal level for each of us, especially those that are impacted by a transit that's right with one of our, say, personal points on our chart, a planet or sun, moon, or node, and so forth. So what are the themes coming up here for 2023? Well, these are the bullet points that I've created for this. One is a frontier shift, and we're starting to get beyond the Saturn-Uranus square that has been strong in the astrological field in 2021 and to some degree in 2022 as well. What's been interesting about that is that in some cases, it's like people were expecting really radical, unpredictable events, which some have happened, but it's also that in some cases, it's like the unpredictable was that nothing was going to happen necessarily, meaning that we're all expecting something big and then nothing manifests in that way. And so I find that really fascinating. Like, it was like that Saturn was in a way balancing a little bit of that Uranian revolutionary spirit and unpredictability around it, where Saturn is much more, I say, a conservative approach to it all. But we're moving beyond that into a whole new frontier, and for the globe itself. We're also a little bit of focus on the US chart in regards to Pluto in particular, although I am considering doing just a video just specifically about the US natal chart and what's going on with that. I might do that in January or February, because there's so much to look at on that, that this video won't do it any justice by just looking at a small part of that. But yes, the death rebirth of the US continues. That has been ongoing since 2020. And really some of the echoes, the pre-echoes, if you will, of that the precursors to the death rebirth were already happening when Pluto entered Capricorn back in 2008, and when Saturn also entered Capricorn in 2018 and continued into 2019 with its first near conjunction with Pluto at that time. So dreams of the past and dreams of tomorrow. So this is like a crossroads. This is part of the overall theme of being in the Turning of the Ages right now, and meaning that part of us are stuck in, might be a romanticism of the past of what once was, when the dreams of tomorrow are calling. Like, what can we co-create for a better future for ourselves, and what could be manifested for all of us, and each of us individually doing our own bit for our own role in whatever comes, not for the longer term, but for our own personal, not for the longer term, just only the collective, I mean, but for also our own personal application in the world. And so that dream of tomorrow continues. This is one that I've hit on off and on in prior videos, particularly with Chiron in Aries and the need to grieve and to heal. There's an alignment that's coming up in the late winter and early spring that involves Chiron very strongly, with Jupiter also in Aries, along with the other planetary bodies. This really is one of the, say, greatest vulnerabilities of humanity right now, that many in the collective, or at least it's not seen as a strength, is to grieve, is to be vulnerable, is to be in a space where we can be in our, we need to anguish, if we need to just cry out and feel our pain, if you will, and allow it to be felt in a deep way, so that we can integrate it in a healthy way. We can heal it. We can get the medicine that we need. And that is part of that theme that's continuing into 2023. And also part of that is needing to adjust to accelerating change. And this is continuing, some of this is related to the technological advancements that are on this planet. With everything going on all at once, it can be really overwhelming, and certainly affecting mental health with all that's happening, along with the traumas of collective traumas of 2020 and 2021. So going beyond extreme polarity and duality is another theme. This is part of what Mars is helping to uncover, and there'll be other incarnations of other planets that are help kind of push that out, and through the sign of Gemini, and also the twins constellation. So that's like a whole video all by itself. But going beyond extreme polarity, good versus bad, dark versus light, blue versus red. It's like, well, what is it? Well, do we keep having to harp on it and go to extreme measures? So this is part of maybe what Mars's transit in currently through Gemini, and its recent opposition with the Sun is helping to communicate for humanity. So the alignments, some of the major alignments here, of course, we're going to talk about the eclipse seasons. The lunar nodes are going to shift into Aries and Libra in July. We got the continuing Mars in Gemini, America's Pluto Return, which I mentioned. We also have Saturn shifting to a new sign in March, in the sign of Pisces. Jupiter, at the time of this video, Jupiter has yet to move back into Aries, but will be right around the solstice of December, and then move into Taurus, race through Aries and move into Taurus in May. Pluto gives us a preview of its incarnation into Aquarius. And then there's the big alignment in Aries, which I just briefly mentioned. And I'm also going to talk about what occultations of planets by the moon are coming up. We had a recent one, actually two recent ones. One of Uranus in November, the moon, and then one with Mars back on December 7th/8th, depending on where you are on the planet, which was really, you know, very, very big deal. I did a whole video about that, the Mars opposition, and I'm currently doing a Pathfinder Mars, Path Seeker Mars, Path Seeker Mars online course. And it's not too late to join that in case you were wanting to learn more about Mars in the sky and the masculine and its relationship to the feminine, the polarity of masculine and feminine, as well as like Gemini and what its relationship in the sky and what that means, and that we all have masculine and feminine within us. But that Mars impacts all of us on some level, astrologically speaking. So symbolically, this is something we're going to be talking about, the symbolism of Mars and the astrology and helping all of us follow Mars through the sky. That's what that particular online course is. And there'll be a lot of spiritual applications with it, including guided journeys in each class that we will be doing. And we only just had our first class, and it's spread out over about a 8 to 9 month period. So with other in-between discussions. So feel free to, there'll be a link below about that, and if you care to check that out. All right, so let's take a look at the timeline, because this is something that will also be linked up where everybody can take a look at this. But this is, I did this last year, and a lot of people love this. And so I'm doing it again this year, as you can see here. All the major alignments, including the eclipse dates, certain planetary oppositions, even the Venus heliacal rise, and some other points here. Pluto and Aquarius right over here. We've got the Vesta, new expression of Vesta coming in at the end of this year, and as it moves through Cancer and Gemini, which is also, I feel, also giving us a little bit of that energy around duality. We've got 4 months of Venus and Leo, because it's going to be retrograde during that time. And we see, I've got some stuff about late 2022 in here so that we can kind of get some perspective about where things have been. And all the Mercury retrogrades are listed here too, for each person's convenience. Yeah, so Saturn and Sun opposition. So there's plenty here to take a look at and view for ourselves here. All right, well, let's move into like what's happening right now. One of the things that is really happening is this Mars and Gemini, and I would refer to you to look at the Mars and Gemini video that I did in the Mars opposition video with the full moon. Will also answer some questions about this particular Mars and Gemini transit. Mars entered Gemini on August 20th and continues until March 25th of 2023. So August 20th of 2022 to 2023. So every 2 years, Earth catches up with Mars in its orbit. And then when that happens, Mars spends an exceptional amount of time in one sign, or sometimes 1 or 2 signs. Like there were a few years where during the Mars opposition times or retrograde, where it spent time in both Aquarius and Capricorn. And then the previous incarnation, that was back in 2018. And then in 2016, there was the Sagittarius and Scorpio. So we're getting, in 2020 was all Aries. So we're getting quite a big dose here of Gemini. And so we're going to be spending 7 months in that. And on December 7th is what it rose in the evening sky, is what is called astronomically acronychal rise, meaning it's rising as the sun is setting. Again, I would share with you to go to the video about Mars and Gemini more fully about that. So last time this happened, this pattern, was way back in 75 and 76. And that time, Mars and Gemini was from August 1475 to March 1876. So it wasn't like that far off like that. The reason is because Mars has a pattern, 47 years. And now during that time, the only exception to that was it spent a little bit of time in Cancer. So it wasn't only in the sign of Gemini. It spent 39 days there. So we're getting kind of another incarnation of that. You might say another wave of this, of coming through the previous incarnation of Mars and Gemini into this new one of Mars and Gemini. So from 1975, 76 to 2022 to 2023. So that's just something to be aware of and connect into as part of that exploration of duality. One of the other things that's happening this year is the last Mars in 2023, I mean, is the last of the 3 Mars-Neptune squares. There were 2 of them in the fall of 2022, and then there's a third one coming up on March 14th, 2023 at 2504 Gemini, and with Neptune in Pisces. That is a whole deal, and I've got a slide just specifically for this that talks about what this represents. But here's some other dates to kind of look at from the past, and also that Mars is stationing direct on January 12th, 2023. So there will be, as Mars is retrograde at the time of this recording, it went retrograde back on October 30th of 2022. And typically spends a couple of months retrograde. In this case, it's about 2.5 months that it's retrograde. So Mars, whenever that acronychal rise that I mentioned briefly, whenever that happens, from a shamanic astrology perspective, this is starting a whole new synodic cycle of Mars. There are some astrologers that will look at this and start it from the Mars-Sun conjunction. But the reason it starts from that shamanic astrology looks at it from a Mars-Sun opposition is because that's when it's near its closest point to the Earth, when it's at its brightest, and it's at its kind of its fullness, if you will. It's like that full expression of that. We can see it. We have a visual connection to it. Just as like the Venus cycle, when it starts at heliacal rise, the first morning sky appearance of Venus, that's when it's, first pops up pretty startlingly. Wow, it's brightened. It's here. It's ready. It's ready to take on. Bring us a new story. Whereas when it's in conjunction, like whether it be Venus conjunction with the Sun or Mars conjunction with the Sun, we can't see it. And it's invisible to the naked eye. And so this is the experiential component of these synodic cycles, of the cycles in general. In ancient times, when they looked at what they call the new moon, is when the first crescent moon appeared in the evening sky. That's like, wow, we've got a new moon. It is shown up in the sky, not from the mathematical calculation of when the moon is conjunct the sun, which obviously is also important too, but we're seeing this from an experiential perspective. So we're connecting with these planets in the sky, the moon, the sun, all of it as an experience, especially in particular the visible ones. So we're connecting into that within ourselves and helping ourselves understand what's going on in our lives at a personal level. Like symbolically, this can also show up, and as we follow these planets to the sky, there's a story of as above, so below. There's a story within ourselves and without, and these planets help initiate us in our lives. So this is just another one of those ways to do that. And in Mars's case, this is how we can also connect with it. I did myself back on December 7th. A personal Mars ceremony for myself. And yeah, I thought it was really amazing. I wasn't able to see the occultation from where I live because of cloud cover, but it definitely felt like I was really personally connected into that space. I got some good transmissions through that space. So each person's going to have their own relationship with the planets. in the night sky. More about the Mars-Neptune square. So that's one coming up in March. That last one, which I mentioned here, is on March 14th, 2023. So the mean of Mars squaring Neptune lies in the signs that they are each in. So Mars, of course, in Gemini, Neptune in Pisces. And the square pattern may help create sharp confusion in our sense of reality and our relationship to the masculine, and spirituality can be called into question, especially if we're experiencing a personal astrological cycle with Mars or Neptune. So the mind itself is expanded beyond the tethers of the middle world, form and structure, which may result in being lost in ideas and roles we want to be. It could even result in an identity crisis. At the same time, it opens the mind to the heart and spirit, to all being one and the same in the celestial realm. So what this is saying is that this is not a time to get clarity. Like this Mars Neptune period really is this walkabout type period, and where the mind is kind of in a space of great imagination, creativity, and is highly active, but its connection to duality and what that means, it may feel a sense of untetheredness around that. And that could be ultimately a healthy thing if we can get a experience to what beyond duality actually represents. And Neptune can certainly create that in combination with Gemini. So this is a one brief look at this. Again, I talk about this in the Mars and Gemini video and a little bit in the Mars opposition video. And I'm sure I'll be talking about this in social media posts when we get into March and that last Mars Neptune square. The next thing I want to discuss is Pluto and this upcoming Pluto in Aquarius, as well as the death rebirth of Pluto. I've got a whole specific video specifically on the Pluto return of the United States. Pluto in Capricorn, and December 28th marks the last day, the last exact conjunction of transiting Pluto to the natal US Pluto. So just a brief look at what Pluto represents in shamanic astrology. Well, it's symbolic of one of the three classic worlds, the underworld, along with the other minor planet Chiron. Pluto connects us to the realm beneath our conscious selves and deeply associated with the transformation of our soul or psyche. Pluto's not about the physical realm per se, but it can have ramifications, of course, in the physical realm and arrive as a result of through feelings and reactions to fears that we experience. Now, Pluto doesn't have a monopoly on fear, but fear is an initiator into the underworld. It helps us realize the treasures buried within and helps us navigate those fears and deep feelings. And to access those treasures requires us to process of surrender to the initiation itself. So when something's coming up and we fear what's coming, and we might feel like, well, I'm comfortable in my space. I don't want to leave my doors. I don't want to go to that place or visit that tough conversation with my partner or with my family member or with my boss. This could be an area where surrender is coming up when it usually becomes intolerable. Something becomes intolerable or intolerable, and then that's when one is maybe able to face their fears. And it's usually also when there's things beyond your control where there is no other choice but to surrender to it. And the experience would be with an illness. I've had that experience myself where, that I was, in a place where I felt like I was near death, and I had no other choice but to surrender to what was happening. And in those moments of surrender, there was a rebirth that was taking place. And after that surrender, and each person's going to do it in their own way. There's no perfect technique to do this. It's just each person, there's now 8 billion people on the planet, and each person is going to have their own unique method of doing that. Collectively, Pluto can bring up apocalyptic themes and our deepest nightmares. And we see that playing out in the movies. We see it playing out in shows and in the media, and with politics and science and religion and health. We're seeing that everywhere, and it's this fear. And yes, it can be used as a tool to control, but do we surrender to, or do we look carefully? Do we look into the deeper waters of that and finding out where that's really come from? Because humanity's had this really profound relationship with fear since humanity has been humaning. And so this is a chance now to kind of work with it more effectively, particularly in the US, where we're having a death rebirth experience. But for those around the world that are having plutonic initiations or transits in their own charts, some of what I'm sharing will definitely apply to you. The last Pluto conjunction is happening here on December 28th, 2022. We can see this is also with Venus and Mercury, with Pluto here. And this is the last one. This is going to involve the feminine. It's involving the mind and our relationship to structure and form and systems. Like, what systems are in place that need to be let go of? What structures are no longer viable for us or unhealthy? They're toxic for us. And why is what's looking at the feminine, its relationship to the underworld, not just women in particular, but it's our own relationship to the feminine and receptivity, and I would even say the Mother Earth as well, Gaia. And so this is something that we can look at, and how can we have a greater healthy relationship when we dig into the earth and we see the evidence of what has happened and how we can live in greater harmony with that. This is it. This Pluto return, in particular with the US, and we are kind of at the edge of a crevasse that we don't know how deep it goes. Yet it's something we've got to face. There's going to be more about that when I talk about Chiron here. But again, this is the US chart, and I'd love to dive into this a little more with a separate video. But one of the other factors of the US chart is that when the US was formed, July 4, 1776, Mars was also in Gemini. So this is a return to that experience of what the masculine is in Gemini. This eternal youth energy, this Peter Pan type energy that hasn't grown up, that hasn't really matured, or has tried at times, but then falls back onto this, sort of the shadow of Gemini of not knowing what truth is, not really understanding how to work with duality and how to go beyond it in a healthy way. And I think a lot of that energy with Mars going back and forth over the natal position of the US Mars is adding to this. And so it's playing a role in our experience with this Pluto return, particularly here, of course, in the United States. And it's certainly its influence, the US's influence around the world. Here are the past conjunctions of the natal Pluto of the US, February 20th, 2022 and July 11th, 2022. And then next year, there'll be a period where Pluto is within 1 degree and almost gets to a fourth between August 16th, 2023 and December 2nd, 2023. So there's this energy that's still part of the Pluto return of the United States. I call the United States still in this through 2024 because of the ramifications of what happened in 2020 when it was about 2 to 3 degrees away from the natal position of the US Pluto. So some of what is taking place in this, not just the Pluto return, but this 2008 to 2024 period of Pluto in Capricorn, This is a great composting and a collective surrender to our fears. I mentioned the apocalyptic visions, dreams, projections. This is something that Richard Tarnas talks about in his work in Cosmos and Psyche. I definitely would recommend reading different parts of that book. It's a really thick tome of a book, but the parts about Pluto are really powerful. A chrysalis stage for the United States, absolutely. As I mentioned, systems and structures being detoxified. Now, on a personal level for us, each person here, we are also in that space. Like we're in the field, we're in the energy. So it also impacts our own personal structures and systems with our families, with our loved ones, with our job, with our goals and our dreams, with our soul's journey. This is Pluto is helping bring that alive. Seeds of transformation and deep soulful healing. So this is in part connected to Chiron, but empowerment can come from all of this. So that's if there's like, okay, Erik, what's the payoff? What's the reward here? Well, maybe not in the sense of like some kind of like what we know as a middle world reward, but this is more of like a soul reward of being able to be true to ourselves and to know ourselves that well, is to face all of this for ourselves. And that can bring healing, facing our wounds, facing our traumas. The storm before the calm. So we're still in that space of that storm. And I will share that this is a part of the longer haul of the turning of the ages that will go on for many more years. And in particular, at least through 2025, and then at the end of the Kali Yuga. But still, that's just sort of the period where that particular stage ends, and then we move into 3 centuries of transition. That doesn't mean it's all going to be bad or chaotic or crazy. I mean, there's going to be some spots in there that are going to be really hopeful and enlightening and enlivening as well. So Pluto in Aquarius. This Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. So it's spent, by the time it's done, it will have spent roughly 16 years in the sign of Capricorn. But it'll spend over 20 years or around 20 years, give or take, in the sign of Aquarius. So Pluto is slowing down in its orbit. It ingresses into the sign of Aquarius March 23rd, 2023, and will go on until June 11th of 2023. And then most of 2024, it spends in Aquarius, but then it briefly retrogrades into the late degree of Capricorn. And then on November 19, 2024, it shifts for good into Aquarius all the way until it starts to transition into Pisces in 2043 and 2044. So this is the timeline here of Pluto's transit and ingress into the sign of Aquarius. So what does this mean? Well, this is something that I wrote about here and we'll continue to write about. We've already been getting signs of this. We can even say that there's a relationship, a cosmic relationship between the water bearer constellation, and which is astronomers still call Aquarius, but it's the water bearer constellation and the sun, the seasonal or sign in time of Aquarius. I know some astrologers like to use directional. It's a tropical zodiac. I just, connecting to the dots here. We don't have a full universal agreement here with everything, but we do understand there is a tropical zodiac and then there is a sidereal zodiac. We're working here with the tropical zodiac, which is about the seasonal signs, the signs that are connected to the Earth's seasons or points in time. When we're considering both hemispheres, we're looking at points in time. So Pluto is a sign, of course, of death and rebirth, as I mentioned, and or Pluto in this sign, I should say, Pluto in this sign is a death rebirth of our relationship to innovation, technology, and the relationship to consciousness and its desire to expand. So this can lead to a deeper level catharsis of spiritual desire of the mind to understand the nature of source. Aquarius is the sign of consciousness evolution and expansion. This sign connects us to the leading edge of thought and future landscapes in humanity. Aquarius involves itself in change for the greater benefit of humanity. But this depends upon the person or community's perspective of what really is of greater benefit to humanity. Aquarius has a revolutionary mind, but it is not about leading the charge of a rebellion. This comes from the mind and cosmic thought. So like Aries and Leo and others would be the ones that sort of, I'd say, take the action. Aquarius is more about the thoughts and the consciousness and the ideas. Aquarius usually gets its knowledge from elsewhere, and at times is driven to its mind touching the divine energy. Certainly a shadow of that can be that it that it knows it all. Like Aquarius knows the best and will have a certain arrogance to it. There's certainly can be signs like Leo and others that have that shadow to it. And we see this in people in the technological field, the scientific field, and even in the kind of the workings behind in the political and or other fields, spiritual field, where they are the ones with the knowledge. It's kind of almost a Capricornian sense, but done from a place without a strong foundation, if you will. And so that shadow can have its cracks. Aquarius is not about one's feelings or empathy, so it's detached from that. It can experiment with that. It's human, and certainly in its experience with being embodied here in our flesh and blood, but it isn't about empathy. It can have the idea of it and kind of the concept of universal love and relationship, but it's from the place of the mind rather than the place of the heart. But that's where other things come in that can actually inject a little bit if I say feelings into that space, like say if someone's got Pisces in there or some strong Neptune or Cancer as an example, or maybe they've got Aquarius in the 4th or 12th house as an example. You've got other ways of bringing in empathy and compassion. But again, it doesn't mean it's that Aquarius is devoid of that, of empathy or compassion. It has that, but it's at a kind of, it's not a priority for it. Archetype Aquarius can theorize about universal love and what it is about and enact it, but feelings are akin to a different universe for Aquarius and one to experiment and test upon within that experience. So yeah, we can see that, taken to extremes with certain kinds of experimentations that have been done in history, but then there are also kinds that are about really being of service to humanity in a way that is more from a place of universal love and connection on a spiritual level. So we can also see that too. So every sign, again, has its light and shadow, and this is part of what I was bringing forth here. Okay, so what else can we talk about here? Well, let's talk about what Mercury retrogrades are going on. We've got an Earth theme Mercury retrograde for 2023, and then in 2024, it's Sagittarius. So we see that in the next Mercury retrograde coming up is December 29th, 2022 through January 18th, 2023. And that goes from 24 Capricorn to 8 Capricorn. So fully in Capricorn. That's the one that's coming up really quickly here. As I mentioned, I'm recording this in mid-December of 2022. Then the next one is in the spring, from April 21 to May 14 of 2023. That happens all in Taurus, from 15 Taurus to 5, almost 6 Taurus. And then we have August 23rd, 2023 to September 15th, 2023 at the end of summer. here in Northern Hemisphere. That would be in the winter in the south. And this would be at 2151 Virgo to 8 Virgo. Again, this is all where Mercury stations retrograde and Mercury stations direct in Earth signs. But the last one that starts in 2023 and ends on the first day of 2024, that goes from 829 Capricorn to 2210 Sagittarius. So that'll begin the fire themes of 2024. So Earth becomes, like, if we were to take this incomplete with, especially when I'm going to talk about Jupiter and Taurus in a few slides here, this is, it's really important for us to really connect into our relationship to Earth itself, and not just the sensualities and the pleasures in the garden of earthly delights, but like purpose and structure and systems and like middle world type things. And how are we caring for that Earth as stewards of this planet? And certainly we have mixed results about the kind of job we're currently doing, and what we can do, of course, much better. And this 2023 period is giving us an opportunity. I mentioned in prior videos about the Saturn-Uranus square and how Uranus is in Taurus, the sign of Taurus. Well, this is adding to this. This is maybe giving us an additional insight into having potentially some breakthroughs. The recent Conference of the Parties, which has to do with environmental concerns that happened back in, I think it was COP27 in November, where there were some international agreements that were made, and little by little each year is making a little bit of progress, but it's obviously not moving fast enough for some and moving too fast for others. But it's more to us, the survivability of us as a species and a lot of other species on this planet is, getting our act together here. If there's anything that's going to unite humanity, any idea, any purpose, it would be this planet itself. I can't see really one other thing other than even then, on a global climate crisis, that disasters and things that can bear fruit from that's what can bring humanity together. Maybe not every single human being on this planet, but the majority of it theoretically could be brought together. So maybe this is this is the insight here of this Mercury retrograde, is trying to get the mind wrapped around that space and focused upon that creatively, co-creatively for ourselves. Okay, what's coming up in the alignment of this Aries conjunction window? So there's 4 planetary bodies that come together in late February and into early March. As we're seeing here in this late February window, we're seeing Vesta, Jupiter, Venus, and Chiron, all within 3, almost 4 degrees together. This is very unusual. I've got another slide that talks about this more, but let's just say that this period is really emphasizing Aries, the sign of Aries in particular, and Chiron. To some degree, I will also bring in Eris too, because there is a Venus-Eris conjunction at the same time that there's another triple conjunction in Aries, another extremely rare thing. This has to do with the feminine, the strength of the feminine itself and its mission and purpose within the collective, the feminine principle, not just specifically like women, but our relationship to this energy, receptiveness. But this isn't when we look at this, Aries is not a receptive energy, so it's more of a action-oriented energy. It's about mission and purpose, and really finding a cause and something worth fighting for. But at the same time, with Chiron there, it's intended to help us recognize the deeper wounds from past missions and purposes that have not just involved the feminine, but and it certainly relate to Aries more commonly is war and its aftermath. I would refer everyone to the Chiron and Aries video that I did. I may do an update video of that this coming year, which talks a lot about the grief, the grieving that humanity needs to do. And I believe that this turning of the ages and this great emergence of something of a new seed that has yet to fully manifest, that this alignment is it's going to be intense, I feel, but it's going to give us a chance to go within, in a deep way, and work consciously with our wounds. Now, this can also be at the same time a very reactive time. I've got February 26th through May 7th of 2023. So there's some alignments here, some dates, and like I would say, not just only that one date, but to look at the several days before and several days after, that it isn't just about the exact conjunction, although those are very important as well. February 26th, Venus, Chiron, Vesta, and Jupiter within 5 degrees. I just mentioned that. March 2nd, Venus, Chiron, Vesta, and Jupiter within 4 degrees. And March 12th, a near exact conjunction of Jupiter, Vesta, and Chiron. This is what's happening here. And at the same time, this is the same day, or the day, or just the day before, March 11th/12th, is the Venus Eris conjunction, all happening in rapid succession here. And the sun hasn't even gotten to Aries at that point yet, nor has Mercury. And then on April 23rd, we have a Jupiter Eris conjunction. We don't have a Chiron Eris conjunction. That won't happen until 2024 or 2025, somewhere in that zone. That'll be a different video altogether. I think that one's going to be really important as well. We'll have to look at Chiron's retrograde loop to see if there will be 3 conjunctions between Chiron and Eris. So that will be interesting to check out. But certainly at the time of this recording, there's certainly a big war happening in Ukraine, and there are other places where there is fighting and violence and war and or rebellions happening. This Aries period could create more of that, and we may find that during this, especially with Chiron, the deeper wounds of all this, the ramification, the consequences of all of this, and how maybe to better understand how we can heal from those traumas. And I would say on those that have the soldiers that are out there that have already finished fighting, from prior wars many years ago, veterans, this is a chance, I would say, if there was somebody that were wanting to make and connect with more people and build circles and dialogue with this would be like to amplify this, to bring it onto a deeper level, higher octave during this time, where more healing can take place, more dialogue can take place, more real world progress can be made, and not just to use war as a tool where authoritarian government uses it to distract a population, such as Russia. And it really is a crime against humanity. It really is a collective trauma, and this is something where, and these alignments can bring this to light more. It's interesting during this, at the end of winter and the beginning of spring. So there's something to look out for around changes in that particular war, but also in other fronts where, we're trying to heal from this, and how in James Hillman's book, A Terrible Love of War, that war is not normal. It really is not a normal thing for humanity. And it's kind of an aberration, especially the how common it is, because many thousands of years ago, it certainly wasn't, not to this extent, not professional soldiers anyway. There were times where there were battles and fighting, but it was not as prolonged, if you will. There's Jupiter in Aries. Jupiter in Aries moves into Taurus. So the recent Jupiter in Aries coming up here, the first 4.5 months of 2023 is the second expanded wave of Jupiter in Aries. Daniel Giamario and I did a webinar about the Jupiter Aries transit back on December 7th. That's still available at the trinityoftheages.com website. And that for more information about that, definitely go to that. But I'll just share that this is where that's part of that expression. Jupiter's expanding all of that I just discussed about all that Aries energy. So, mission and purpose. Things are full steam ahead. There's going to be I would say, in fact, during that time, a lot of the planets are going to be direct. We're going to be moving into this great wave of direct motion. So like a huge amount of acceleration is going to be happening around the world. Jupiter moving into Taurus is a bit different. This it starts on May 16th, 2023, and continues for a year until May 25, 2024. So this archetype of Taurus is about authentic receiving, pleasure, sensuality, and comforts. This includes our way of life with Earth, from where nearly everything we enjoy comes from. So this is really a vital part of our experience here as we go through the majority of 2023 is about Jupiter and Taurus. Jupiter expands all that it touches. It'll amplify Taurus, therefore, our relationship with the comforts, receiving and the pleasures of life. Sensuality being another big word for Taurus. The last time that happened with Jupiter and Taurus was between June of 2011 and June of 2012. So Taurus is more, unlike Aries, which is about real acceleration. Taurus is about slowing down, taking it easy, taking your time, being thorough, really taking in the comforts and the pleasures of life and learning how to receive the gifts and honoring the giver to actually receive those gifts. So if you're somebody that is a giver out there in the world, is always giving, this could be a chance to maybe balance the scales a little bit and to honor someone else that gives and not to feel, quote, guilty that you've got to give back. Yeah. Take in the gift itself and feel into it and appreciate that, it's not about getting a reward. It's just about like, hey, this is part of the other side of being human too. We have Saturn in Pisces. So in the middle of that major transit alignment that's happening with in Aries with Chiron and Jupiter, Vesta. In fact, the Vesta, Chiron and Jupiter alignment, I haven't seen anyone that's even closer or closest to that in the years that I was looking back at that. At least back many decades, if not hundreds of years. That Vesta, just as a side note, I just want to bring in that alignment here because maybe I'm going to be doing a video specifically about this alignment here in probably at the end of February, beginning of March. But this is what Vesta brings in, since I've even written a book about Vesta, is this greater sacredness to Aries itself. We have at that time, we have Venus, Eris, and Vesta, all strong symbols of the feminine principle. And Vesta brings in strong symbol of the sacredness, the priestess energy into this space. So what is our, Vesta and Aries would ask, what is our sacred purpose and mission in the world? And how can we go all into that? And I certainly feel that if there's one, it has to do with the earth. And number two, also right up there is in the healing of ourselves and bringing us into greater balance and stability in that space, rather than just from a reactive place and just flailing around and blaming others. So Vesta's going deep and treating it as a sacred right. So let's go back to, this is happening well as Saturn moves into Pisces. And Saturn last was in Pisces from 1994 to 96. And this will begin from March 7th, 2023 until February 13th, 2026. Now, there's a period, I think, in 2025 where it retrogrades back into, retrogrades back into Aquarius. Sorry, not back into Aquarius, but it retrogrades into, or ingresses into the sign of Aries in 2025, and then finally goes into Aries in 2026. So there's going to be a little bit of like several months in there where it won't be in that 3-year period where it won't be in Pisces solidly. There's always that transition period. So Saturn addresses middle world issues, including the structure and systems of our lives, relationship goals, financial health, and physical health, and in particular, our bones and stamina. Saturn also shows up in laws and the rules of humanity. So one sort of mantra of Saturn is growth through limits and boundaries. How can we grow through limits and boundaries? So some of the themes of Saturn and Pisces is illusions in our lives and being able to see them in reality. What dreams can we bring into reality, and what would work on a practical level? And there's an emphasis on a sustainable healing in the wholeness of our bodies and psyche, along with our responsibilities around our own spiritual development, empathy, and being of service to others. So this is, I think, playing a role. I mean, eventually Saturn will be in conjunction with Neptune, and I believe it's at the last degrees of Pisces and the early degrees of Aries. So it's kind of, I'll have to look. I think it's right in that space there, right at that equinox point, which is 0 degrees Aries. This is, I think, playing a role in. It happens right before, a week before, 4 days before that before that Neptune-Mars square on March 11th. So we see something here of, this will be a new, like a different version of this Mars-Neptune square, meaning that there's an injection of an additional level of Piscean energy into this space. So something to watch out for. I may just do a full video on Saturn and Pisces, as I typically do when these longer outer planet transits that ingress into new signs. Another one is the lunar nodes ingressing into the signs of Aries and Libra. This is important, and as it relates to the eclipses, because we can't see the nodes, but we can see the effects when we see the lunar and solar eclipses. The North Node representing sort of a destiny or future, and I say that loosely because it's not deterministic. And the South Node or descending node relates to the humanity's origin. This would be a lot more personal when it relates to each individual on the planet. So everybody's got lunar nodes always opposite each other. The North Node's moving into Aries, which opens up an opportunity for humanity to co-create a healthier future on its mission and purpose, and specifically as a defender of Gaia. So again, we have another symbol going into the sign of Aries, the North Node, on July 17th, 2023. And then the South Node moves into Libra, which relates to our current paradigm around relationship with each other, particularly committed ones. So what things are we needing to let go of that we need to just detoxify and just push out with regards to relationships that no longer work, both on a personal level, but also collectively, like what is no longer functioning, and how can we have a healthier balance in that space. So this is playing a role into this eclipse season, and there'll be more information in future videos about this. But here are the 4 eclipses that are happening in 2023. April 19th, 2023, a hybrid solar eclipse. This is a mix of an annular and a total. This will be visible in Indonesia, Australia, and East Timor. This will happen just inside the sign of Aries and only 5 degrees away from Eris. So Eris is definitely playing a role in this particular eclipse on April 19th, 2023, at 29 degrees, 50 minutes Aries. Then on May 5th, 2023, we have a penumbral lunar eclipse at 1458 Scorpio. So we haven't fully finished off the Scorpio and Taurus eclipses. We've still got actually a couple more. We've got this one the lunar eclipses are involving Taurus and Scorpio, and the solar eclipses are involving Aries and Libra. Actually, one of them is. And then on October 14th, we have a annular solar eclipse, which is a really big one. This is actually still in the sign of Scorpio, which will take place in the United States, where I am. Actually, where I'm currently living in Medford, Oregon. It crosses, it just edges along the center line, just edges along the city, according to the astronomers. So, but it'll include a large portion of the U.S., Central America, and Upper South America, and it'll also be conjunct Mercury in this, as it's a South Node eclipse. So it's about a letting go of things, sort of connecting to our origin. And then on October 28th, we have a partial lunar eclipse at 5 Taurus with Jupiter, and so Jupiter will be relatively close to this. And I'll do separate videos for the eclipse seasons themselves. So this isn't like a full analysis of all of this, but this will be visible in all of Asia, Europe, Africa, Australia, and parts of South America. So on the what is known as like the eastern side of the globe and part of the West at that time, October 28th. So April 28th, this annual hybrid solar eclipse. I've got it 19th. It'll be 19th here in Western North America, but in the 20th across the rest of the world. And here's the map of where we'll look at. And you can see a lot of South Asian islands and part of Australia and Indonesia are all going to be in that, either in the center line, or they'll be able to see most of the eclipse itself. And then the October 14th one, I did the presentation back in October at Rasani Body, Mind, Spirit Fair in Albany, Oregon, which is right here. And I was talking about how this eclipse from local time, 8:05 a.m. from the first the moon partially covering the sun all the way until 10:42. So it's 2.5 hours that whole time. But there's 3 minutes and 19 seconds where it's exactly the center, and that's here locally. Now, at its center point, it will be closer to 4 minutes later on in the south part of the U.S. and into southern part of the Gulf of Mexico and into part of South America, which I've got a bigger map for that. Again, this is an annular solar eclipse, so it's a ring of fire around the moon. I've never seen one personally, so I'm looking forward to seeing this in less than a year from now, the time of this recording. You can see Medford here. So for those of that are in Oregon, Northern California, we could even go into here, Nevada, Utah, northeastern Arizona, New Mexico, goes right through the center of New Mexico and into southern western Texas. I think even Austin and Houston become part of that, and into the Gulf, down into Central America, the Yucatan, and curves around the northern part of South America and Brazil. So we could see quite a snapshot of this, quite a swath of land that it's covering. And so make your plans for seeing this. For those that are in the Americas, if you happen to be visiting one of the areas that this is, I think the center point is somewhere along this part where Texas, then it goes into the Gulf. This is kind of that center point of that eclipse area where it's closer to 4 minutes in duration. There's also Mars-Venus pattern that I'll briefly talk about here. And this is that Mars and Venus are going to do this little dance around the star Regulus. And they have a regular pattern that's 77 months or 6.5 years in the sky. So the pattern of 2017 is repeating for 2023, when Mars and Venus came near each other but did not have an exact conjunction. The conjunction happened later in 2017, the early morning sky. So it's part of a larger pattern, but this is kind of that pattern within a pattern here. At any one time, Mars and Venus can have 3 distinct patterns out of a possible 6 patterns, which can evolve slowly over the centuries. In shamanic astrology, they call them sagas, as they denote a larger story that has inspired humanity through the ages, especially with relation to the masculine and feminine. Again, this is a totally separate video to go a deeper dive into that, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a preview of this because this is a really important time when we get into June, July, and August, when this is all occurring. Mars and Venus do come within 4 degrees of each other between June 24th and July 9th, and all in the sign of Leo here. So this happens between 1643 Leo and 2923 Leo. Within 1 degree, at the end of that, it's within 1 degree of the star Regulus, the heart of the Lion constellation, which is a constellation that's connected to the mysteries of the Sphinx and the ancient equinox point in Egypt. So there's a deeper connection there, a different wavelength that is being opened up here. And I wanted to give you this little thing, and you can certainly pause it on some of these frames that I've been sharing. But 2016 to 2018, when the last, quote, great saga, which is a saga that's we're moving into here with this pattern. Great is in the actual title, not that it's a great saga. So it's 2016 to 2018 was that last pattern, and you can see it matches the 2022 to 2025 pattern really well. Only the dimes of visible nearness in the morning is a little bit more than it was in 2016 to 2018. But 52 days exactly, visible nearness, and visible nearness being 10 degrees within each other. But then when we get to 2029, 2031, it's just back to what it was before in 2010 to 2012. So that pattern is opening up there with 2 exact evening conjunctions. But then it regresses back or evolves back into this other 2035, 2037, where there isn't any. In fact, they don't even get that close as they get this upcoming year, 2023. They only get within 20 degrees of each other, not 10 degrees or even 5 degrees. So this is an interesting pattern that's playing out. Now, there will also be a new Venus cycle with Venus retrograde. This is a big one that's coming up here. Every time Venus does this, it starts a whole new synodic cycle. So Venus will station retrograde at 2836 Leo, and on July 22nd, 2023, very close to the star Regulus, so less than 2 degrees. You can see on this map where that is here. And Mars, this is the map. Actually, this is 2 days before it's retrograde, but Venus won't be moving very much even 2 days later. So you can see I wanted to capture that Moon-Mars conjunction, which I've got here on the screen. And Venus will be retrograde for 6 weeks until September 3rd, 2023 at 12/12 Leo. And then Venus will spend over 4 months on the sign of Leo from June 5th to October 8th. And this retrograde signals a new Venus cycle that will begin in about a month. Venus will have its heliacal rise on August 20th, 2023, and begin a whole new 19-month, 584-day synodic cycle. And over a period of 8 years, it does this 5 times. And this is one of the core inspirations and transmissions of the 5-pointed star, pentagram, pentacle. That is due to this particular planet. So it has a heliacal rise in 5 different spots, 5 different signs, and 5 different places in the sky over a period of 8 years. So 5 becomes a powerfully sacred number, 8 as well, a sacred number. And then there's the number 13, which is, add 5 and 8, and you have 13. So you get this magic that's happening here. And this is some of what alchemists work with priestesses work with cultures work with. They build calendars off of Venus cycles in the Aztec, the Mayans, the ancient Mesopotamians. They all had calendars based upon this Venus cycle. So this is coming into a re-recognition of this with a new energy that's coming through. And there's a lot of people out there that are working with Venus, and I applaud them all. all the star seekers out there and the Venusian astrologers and more that are working with this powerful magic, and keep going with that. Priestesses, priests, um, sky ministers, whatever druids, whatever name you want to give them. This is something as I've done ceremonies around Venus myself, and it can be really profound. And watching Venus rise in the early morning sky before sunrise, it's something that is really catches one's attention. So I recommend it all. And lastly, these are the occultations by planets, or sorry, of planets by the moon. And Mercury doesn't have any. Venus has got March 10th and November 9th. Mars still has 3 at the early part of 2023. In fact, 2 in January. January 3rd, January 30th, and then also on February 28th. I would go to look these up more. I might have some links below. I think I might just put those in there to see where these occultations are taking place. I know Guy Otwell, an astronomer, he has a calendar, both in print and online, that is definitely universal. I think it's Universal Workshops. That is definitely worth checking out. He really gets into a lot of the details with all of this. Saturn or Jupiter's got 3, February 22nd, March 22nd, May 17th. Again, these aren't just occultations, but they're moon planet conjunctions. Saturn's got none in 2023. Uranus has 3, January 1 and 28th, and February 25th. So it's following along the same, very similar track as Mars. Neptune's got 3 as well, August 31st / September 1st, September 28th, and December 19th. And then Pluto, these are the main planets. I'm not covering the asteroids or stars in this due to the video would be much, much longer than it already is. So that's what I've got. So Pluto's got none, no occultations by the moon. All right, so I want to thank you all for bearing with me with the overview of 2023 and the astrological alignments and transits. There will be more videos to come, and like and subscribe. If you do, please do share this, and share any comments or thoughts about this upcoming year, 2023. I'd love to hear from you. You could also email me at inspiralnexus@gmail.com. And more to come. You can find more information about my work with Kevin Castell at mystaralchemy.com with the Starry Night courses. And find more information about the Shamanic Astrology Paradigm at tourneyoftheages.com. I do, besides doing videos, I do personal astrology readings, astrocartographies, chart comparisons. I do classes and other events, both online and in person. So feel free to reach out. And you can go to inspiralnexus.com for more information about that, and or reach out to me by email or through my website or through social media on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I hope you all are gonna have a fabulous 2023, and look up into the sky and be inspired. Tune in, and it's never ending. We get to look at the beauty and the amazement, that the gift that is the night sky of one of the worlds, one of the realms that is just above our heads is the one that's below, and the one that we're dealing with each and every day. So be well, everyone, and take good care.